I want to get you more views and perspectives on the two sessions. Let me bring in Qian Jun, Professor of Finance and Executive Dean of Fanhai International School of Finance at Fudan University, and Martin Jacques, the author of When China Rules the World and Senior Fellow from the Department of Politics and International Studies at Cambridge University. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have both of you on China 24 today. Professor Qian, I want to start with you. And on the topic of China's GDP target this year, how did we arrive at the over 6% growth this year, and how realistic is that target?
I thought that's a very good target setting for these reasons. One, actually 6% is very realistic. It's almost certainly to be reached. In fact, most economists, when they make estimations of China's economic growth this year, it's beyond 7%, 7.5%, or even above 8%. Part of that is because last year we had a below long-term trend growth, mainly due to the pandemic. So this year, if we follow this long-term trend, we should grow higher than the long-term trend growth rate, which is around 5.5 to 6%. But to set the target to be above 6%, that makes the goal, first of all, very realistic, and second of all, it re-emphasizes point that China seeks not just speed of growth, but high quality of growth. So this target can be easily reached so that people can focus more on structural changes in the economy, as we will discuss more.
Mr. Jacques, we are keenly aware of the situation right now that China finds itself in, not completely out of the woods. We're still very much in recovery mode, albeit positive GDP growth last year. Now, China has said it will develop a strong domestic market and foster a new development paradigm over the next 5 years. How important is that emphasis on domestic consumption?
Well, I think this is a very important development. It is not entirely because the domestic market has been going on for some time, and the relative decline of the export market has also been continuing for some period. But there's obviously a new emphasis now taking place. The dual circulation strategy, the new development strategy, and I think this is most important. Now, why? Well, because first there's a limit, and we've hit that limit some time ago now, to the possibilities of exports. And secondly, the domestic economy, of course, has been growing very quickly, and so now we're on the verge of seeing China's domestic market becoming the largest in the world. So this is this rebalancing, if you like, I think is most important. There is, of course, another factor as well, and that is the deterioration in the relationship with the United States and to some extent other Western countries is making China's exports in to some countries more problematic. So the reinforcement and emphasis on the importance of the domestic market, coupled with innovation and the new technology drive, should be seen, it seems to me, as a new kind of approach, or a shift in approach, and with some new characteristics based on the importance of self-reliance.
Understood. Professor Qian, economy, of course, is a big topic every year during the two sessions. But China is not only seeking economic growth in numbers, it has also set goals in other fronts. Let's put these numbers up for viewers to see. It promises to lower its carbon dioxide emissions by 18% in the next 5 years. Why is the country also making a major push to develop new energy sources?
Right. So again, this is also a new front that China is going to develop what we call high-quality economic growth, not just speed. If we learn anything from the pandemic, other than fighting the virus, is that there's a much stronger urgency among most countries in the world that we need to deal with climate change. And obviously, China is among one of the largest carbon emission countries in the world. So for China to take the lead and to announce an ambitious goal of cutting the emission by 18% over the next 5 years, I think it's great. It shows the responsibility of a rising power. It will contribute greatly to the global reduction of carbon emissions. And at the same time, as you mentioned, green energy, green economy is one of the new forces that's going to drive China's economic growth. The other thing that makes this goal very encouraging is that the other very important country in fighting global climate change is the U.S. Now, with the Biden government rejoining the Paris Accord, we now see we're much more hopeful to see a global coordination of reducing carbon emissions. So with China setting this goal, with the U.S. on board, I guess we are more hopeful to see a cleaner and greener world in the short run.
Mr. Jacques, we're a bit short on time here. I'll leave both of you there for now. Bear with me here on our program. We'll be right back. Now, for more on how the international community is reacting to China's 2 sessions, let's get the perspective from the United States. Our Jim Spellman joins me from Washington, D.C. Jim, in the government work report, Premier Li Keqiang said China would promote the growth of mutually beneficial China-U.S. business relations on the basis of equality and mutual respect. What can we expect?
Well, let's begin with the last part, mutual respect. I think it's fair to say that we can expect a much more respectful stance towards China coming from the Biden administration. I don't think we can expect to have any of the Donald Trump style name calling coming from President Biden or the top diplomats. So that will be helpful, but by no means will it be easy to get this relationship back on the right track. Donald Trump was very successful in creating a negative impression of China in the United States amongst both Democrats and Republicans. It's simply good domestic politics at the moment to be anti-China on Capitol Hill. But we see a much different posture from the business community. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, influential business group here, released a study last month looking at the impact of further decoupling of the U.S. and Chinese economies in some particular sectors. Basically, the bottom line is it would be devastating. So I think it's possible here that though the politics does not make it easy to reestablish better ties with China here in Washington, the business community could lead on this and at least at a minimum create an environment where a more realistic approach to U.S.-China relations can be established. There's simply no way the U.S. can continue to be a global economic power in the decades down the road without a successful, positive interactions with China. Jung-Shu?
Jim, Premier Li also said China would open up more sectors and engage more with its international partners. This is not a new promise. It is in line with China's past pledges, but very reassuring to countries that are still looking and hoping to do business in China post-pandemic. What sort of cooperation, Jim, can we expect between China and the United States?
Well, when you look at China's commitment in the work report to further open up in the financial sectors, financial services sector, plus further commitments in R&D, further commitments to seek foreign investment in technology, et cetera, all that is placing more pressure on the United States to engage with China if it wants to remain competitive. I mean, you have to go where the opportunities are, and there are so many opportunities in China, especially right now, given the difference in how China responded to the pandemic versus how the pandemic was responded to here in the United States. But the Biden administration is in no rush to make major changes in any of these areas. Comprehensive reviews underway regarding U.S. trade with China, Chinese technology, U.S. defense posture in the region, et cetera. And it could be months before these reports are completed. The Biden administration wants to do a couple of things before making major engagements with China. First, they want to reestablish ties with traditional partners around the world and, if possible, move forward in a multilateral fashion with those countries that traditionally have been allies of the U.S. Also, the Biden administration would like the pandemic to be in better shape here in the United States, and perhaps the economy to be on better footing, to be able to approach China from a bit of a stronger position before beginning of that. And really, I don't think it's realistic to expect a flashy reboot of this relationship. There are major conflicts here, including over issues that Beijing considers to be internal Chinese issues, Xinjiang, Hong Kong, etc. And so I think the lingering question will be, to what degree will Joe Biden allow these areas of conflict to overshadow potential areas of cooperation? We'll all be watching for that in the months ahead.
We definitely will. Our Jim Spellman in Washington, D.C. Jim, thanks so much as always. For more, let's go back to Qian Jun from Fudan University and Martin Jacques from Cambridge University. Gentlemen, we don't have a lot of time left. Can I get a brief answer from each of you? Mr. Jacques, to you first. China is the only major economy in the world that registered positive growth in 2020. What impetus is China likely to provide to the international market in the coming year?
Well, with the growth rate projected of 6%, but I agree with the earlier remarks that it's probably going to be a bit bigger than that, maybe even up to 8%, but somewhere, let's say, between 6 and 8%. This will be very important because the reality of the situation is that in most of the world, in some degree or another, they're going to face a post-pandemic recession. I mean, we're not out of the pandemic yet. It's inevitably taken an enormous toll. Indebtedness is increasing countries after countries. There's the global growth global contraction was the story in 2020. And the question is how many countries can move into a growth in this period. And ever since around about 2005, China has been the biggest contributor to global growth in the world. And certainly that is going to be the case in 2021.
Professor Qian, earlier as part of our coverage, we talked to people from all walks of life who share their thoughts on China. Let's take a listen together.
There are 21 free trade zones in China, and Hainan is a free trade port. What's the difference between a free trade port and a free trade zone? And what support can the government provide to accelerate the development of the port?
A very specific question there. As that man mentioned, Professor Qian, China has pledged to develop Hainan Island into a globally significant free trade port. How can it compete with other free trade zones or financial centers in China? Professor Qian?
I think the Hainan free, can you hear me? I think the free trade port will complement the free trade zones already in China because they serve very different functions. The free trade port, by definition, allowing ships and cargoes to go in there without any tariffs, if you will. A lot of the free trade zones inside China serve different purposes. So the free trade port basically is a trading hub. In order to compete against other free trade ports in the world, like Singapore, it will have to implement almost zero tariff. It will have to be more efficient. Once all of these can be served, as I said, it will complement to what's already been there in China.
Qian Jun and Martin Jacques, I wish we had more time. Thank you so much for your time.